everyone. Welcome to this particular webinar of DPS Indiranagar, where we are going to talk about Antibiotic Awareness Day. Antibiotic is something like over-the-counter. It is one of the most common over-the-counter medicine, which we just move to the medicine shop and ask for. Okay, थोड़ी सर्दी हो गई है भैया एक antibiotic दे देना. कहीं कट गया अच्छा antibiotic खा लो. It is something one of the most common drugs of this day. So this antibiotic awareness week was initiated, and then it was initiated to make the people aware of the harmful effects of antibiotics. If we consume a lot many antibiotics without considering the side effects of it, it is obviously going to harm us. And it is our proud privilege.
Is there some connection
Dr.
issue?
Jyotsna Agarwal here in this
I
live
can't hear you,
webinar.
Pradipta ji.
She is one of the top microbiologists of the country, should I say, or should I say the state? She is the head of the department microbiology, Ram Manohar Lohia Institute of Medical Sciences. She is also looking after the COVID infection lab here in Lucknow. So, ma'am, the stage is all yours. Ma'am, kindly start with it, please.
Is there some net issue? Network problem is there?
No.
It's not starting now.
It seems due to certain technical hitches, Dr. Agarwal has got disconnected. So the reason I was talking to you all about is this Antibiotic Awareness Week. WHO had initiated this Awareness Week, World Antimicrobial Awareness Week. It is also called. It is also known as Antimicrobial Awareness Week and Antibiotic Awareness Week. The reason is to increase the awareness among the people about the global antimicrobial resistance, because if we consume, if we keep on consuming the antibiotics without any consideration, without thinking about the side effects, it is going to build a
Hello.
resistance in our body, which is in a way going to harm us. Well, I think
Gari.
Dr. Agarwal is here with us. So, ma'am, should we start?
Yes, I think we can start.
Right,
Sorry
ma'am.
for
Ma'am, your
delaying it.
video is off. If yes, ma'am, please.
Yes, okay. Share screen. Can you enable my share screening just for me?
Yes, ma'am. Just 1 minute, please.
Yeah.
Anurag sir. Yes, ma'am. It has been enabled.
Okay.
Please start.
Okay. It has been enabled. Share screen karo. I've done. So hello everyone, all the students, parents, and all the teachers who are here. My heartfelt thanks to Pradipta ji for giving me this opportunity. And also, I'm really happy that schools and colleges are thinking about these things. This was a domain which people thought only belonged to doctors and maybe to the patients. But I'm really glad that people are waking up to this issue. And I'm sorry I missed out on whatever you said on introduction, but some parts of it I did hear that it's available over the counter. Yes, it is, and that's why there is a lot of misuse and abuse of antibiotics. So I'll just just a big thank you that we are doing this. Just a little bit about what we all do as doctors. I think students may sort of think that we are just doctors, but we are actually teachers also. I wonder how many of you actually think about it like this, that we are the one who actually teach the MBBS students to become doctor. So I love teaching, and in normal course of circumstances, I would have loved to take an interactive lecture, but because of Zoom, I will not be able to ask you questions. And I love asking questions, and I don't know whether my students hate me for that or whatever, but I still ask a lot of questions. So first thing I would like to begin with is that what is an antibiotic? So antibiotic, remember, it's a chemical agent which kills bacteria. So now, because of COVID being around, you're at least aware that there are viral infections. So to take care of viruses, there are antivirals. So antibiotic will not be killing virus. Similarly, there are other infections, like there are parasites which infect. You would have heard of children getting worm infestation in their tummies. So that is a parasite. So there are anti-parasitic drugs for that. Then there are fungal infections. You may have heard somebody getting fungal infection on skin or nail or somewhere. So there are antifungals for that. So remember, your antibiotics are the ones which take care of bacteria. So just a little bit about how antibiotics was actually discovered. It's almost going to be 100 years in few years time. It was back in 1920s that one of the scientists, due to his absent-mindedness, due to his whatever he made a sort of mistake, and he just left for a holiday. And when he came back, he discovered this antibiotic. It's very interesting. So I just wanted to show you a slide with that. And so I hope you can see this slide. So the scientist onto my left side is Mr. Alexander Fleming. And these, round plates that he's holding in hand, they are called Petri plates. These plates are used to grow bacteria. So he was, working on this bacteria called Staphylococcus. It's a bacteria which gives all this pus-forming infections, right? So he was working on this bacteria, and then he had to go for a holiday. So he just left these culture plates outside on the, working bench. He forgot to keep them in refrigerator. When he came back a couple of days later, he saw that in his culture plate, now onto my right side, you can see that red color round sort of culture plate. So all those small dots are the bacteria which are growing. And this big blob, white blob, that was a fungus which grew on his culture plate. And he noticed, he made a very keen observation that around this fungus, the bacteria which was growing is not really growing well. I mean, you can also see that there are bigger bacterial, those round dots away from that fungal growth, but around the fungus, there's hardly any bacteria growing. If it was anyone else, they could have just discarded the plate that there's some contamination, fungal has grown, let me just throw away the plate. But he made this very keen observation that whatever this mold or the fungus which is growing, it's making something, it's secreting some chemical which is killing the bacteria. Now, isn't that a very sort of, marvelous observation that he made? This is the kind of mold that we often get, when we keep a bread outside, stale, lying for some time. That's a similar kind of mold. So, hardly anyone would notice anything about it, but that was a great discovery that he made. And this is again just to sort of re-emphasize that how, sort of it's just serendipity. Just an accidental observation led to discovery of this chemical. And the fungus which was making the chemical, the name of the fungus was Penicillium. So they named the antibiotic as penicillin. So this chemical which was being secreted by the fungus, it's named penicillin. Now this penicillin did wonders in the Second World War. It saved more lives than anything else ever. And it was actually named as a miracle drug or a wonder drug. And we really owe a lot to this, penicillin antibiotic. Some of you may have heard of this name, and some of you may have taken, not penicillin as such, but maybe a modification of, this, like a chemical modification of this in a form of antibiotic. So basically, penicillin discovery, it just revolutionized the infectious disease treatment. And it's really, you would be sort of surprised to hear that till the discovery of antibiotics, infectious disease were the biggest killer in the world. And then, soon after discovery of penicillin, many other antibiotics were discovered. And, before that, people would die of simple infections like a throat infection, which is, so unheard of nowadays. So life expectancy also rose. And if I were to ask you, what are the top killers, in diseases in the world today, you'd be surprised to know that the top killers nowadays are the lifestyle diseases, the diseases like the, which come like diabetes, smoking related deaths, or, the heart attacks, or, cancers. They're all lifestyle diseases. But till before antibiotics, till, some years ago, it used to be infections that were the biggest killers. So I'm sure some of you may have taken antibiotics for various sort of ailments, sometime, or somebody in your family would have taken. So you may be aware that there are a lot of ways in which we take antibiotics. There are sometimes they're in form of tablets or capsules, which we take, from our mouth. Sometimes they're given like injections. They could be given directly into the blood or into the muscles. Or sometimes when you have a small wound on the skin, there are even ointments, antibiotic ointments, which are put, and then you may have heard of antibiotic drops also, which people use for their eyes or ears or whatever. So there are lots of ways of taking antibiotics. At the same time, there is a lot of variety of antibiotics, a lot of varieties, so much so that even we as doctors find it difficult to remember their names. So do you ever wonder, why do we have so many antibiotics? I mean, just penicillin could have done the entire works. Why we need to have so many tongue twisting names and different ways of taking different doses? Why? So first of all, the important reason for that is that different bugs, different bacteria need different antibiotics to kill them. No one antibiotic can take care of all the types of bacteria. So which brings me to say that, yes, there are numerous types of bacteria. Some are difficult to kill, some are easier to kill. So we have a number of bacteria. But more importantly than that, why we need so many bacteria is that because the older ones keep becoming ineffective. So we need to have newer antibiotics which are more effective. Now, how does that happen? Why does older bacteria, older antibiotics, they sort of fail to work? So this happens because the more a bacteria gets exposed to an antibiotic, it has to sort of think of ways to survive in presence of antibiotic. We've all heard of Darwin's theory of survival of the fittest, haven't we? So with a bacteria, just sort of trying to survive is just a way of not succumbing to that antibiotic. Now in this screen, if you can see it now, this is just simple evolution of life, from how it sort of began more than 5 billion years ago till today. So if the life of Earth, I had to put it in a clock, in a 12-hour clock, I would say that bacteria came around 4 a.m. and we human beings, just sort of walked in about, say, maybe 15 minutes ago. And antibiotics have been here for a couple of minutes. So if you look at the holistic picture, you'd realize that, bacteria have been there long, long, long before us. We've invaded their world. And then we started saying that they're giving us infections and we need antibiotics to take care of them. So we prepared all these antibiotics, we got them, we started treating infections. So bacteria were threatened. So they had to think of a way of, surviving all this pressure. And, this fight between the bugs and the drugs, it's a constant one. We sort of keep on coming up with newer drugs, and the bugs sort of try to resist these antibiotics. So this is one eternal battle which goes on. And it's like a never sort of ending war that we have with bugs. And why this this is like I told you, this is just because of Darwin's concept of survival of the fittest. So it's just bacteria try to adapt themselves to that particular antibiotic. They you would have heard of DNAs and mutations, so they undergo slight mutations in their genetic material so that antibiotic no longer can kill them. So basically it's a fight that nobody's sort of ready to give up. And it's like a man built a better mouse trap, but nature builds a better mouse. So it's simply that fight which goes on because bacteria keep sort of becoming resistant to the antibiotic drugs. So now like this just to sort of think of an infection like a small pustule or a boil. There you have nearly about, say, 100,000 bacteria in that little abscess, right? Now, when we start giving antibiotic, one or two of those bacteria, they may develop a mutation, and they become resistant to this antibiotic. Suppose we were giving penicillin, so they just don't get killed by penicillin. So what happens is we keep on giving that penicillin. So the bacteria, all the bacteria leaving these two, which have developed mutation and they're resistant, everything else gets killed. Now these two bacteria, then they multiply, they increase the number, and ultimately in that abscess, in that wound, we end up with bacteria which are, all of them are resistant to penicillin, so that antibiotic doesn't work. So in short, remember, more the exposure of antibiotic to the bug, more the chances it'll develop resistance. It'll develop means to sort of become resistant to the effect of antibiotic. And then these bacteria, then they spread the resistant genes to other bacteria. Once they have mutated and developed these specialized genes, then they spread it to their, all the entire sort of, other bacteria also. So that is what is the problem. So now you will say, what is the problem? We can keep on developing newer antibiotics. If the bacteria is smart and it's mutating, why not, we sort of, scientists keep on developing newer antibiotics in lab. Now, let me tell you, it's not easy to develop a new antibiotic. We can't just sort of, depend on, Alexander Fleming type of luck, depend on serendipity that something will come up. No, they're not easy to develop. it takes tens of thousands, millions of dollars, and maybe 10 to 20 years of hard work in research lab to come up with a new antibiotic. So it's like, it's not really easy. And the drug companies are just not interested in developing antibiotics, newer antibiotics. Why would, they develop newer antibiotics? And I'll tell you why. They would rather develop drugs which are used for treating, say, diabetes or hypertension, and not antibiotics, for a simple reason that if a person has high blood pressure, he would need that blood pressure medicine for life, right? If you have diabetes, you need those anti-diabetic medication for life. But for antibiotics, whenever you have an infection, you need a course of maybe 5 to 10 days, and then that's it. So, the revenue generated from antibiotics isn't as much for pharmaceuticals as for some other, types of, drugs, which, they would be happier making. So not too many pharmaceuticals are interested in sort of putting in that much money and that much time in developing antibiotics. So you'll be surprised to know that in last 20 years, we've had like only 4 as such new types of antibiotics. Rest others have just been modified versions of the older antibiotic. So it's actually not easy to come up with antibiotics, and which are effective against the bacteria, which are safe for human beings. There's so many things which have to be taken into consideration, which before an antibiotic is approved for use of human beings. So yeah, one of the reasons why WHO started this antibiotic awareness week was for the simple reason that most of the available antibiotics were becoming ineffective, and people are actually scared that we may end up in a stage where again children may start dying because of simple throat infection. Someone dies of a braised knee because there aren't antibiotics to take care of infection. So globally, a threat is perceived to, like for antibiotics, we have to preserve our antibiotics, use them wisely. So that's why this awareness week happens. And at this time you must wonder that what is your role as non-medicos, as sort of lay people. How can you help in conserving antibiotic? Isn't it a doctor's job? So no, you all have a huge role. And as a community, as responsible citizens, you have a lot sort of to add on to prolonging the life of antibiotics. I would say being aware is the first step, right? Unless we don't know what is happening, we'll never work towards it. So if some of you are not even aware that, yes, we are running out of effective antibiotics, so at least today you're aware that, yes, we may not have too many antibiotics left in 10, 20 years from now. So we have to sort of conserve them. It's just like the global warming thing. Till we were sort of blissfully unaware, we were just doing everything. We were not even bothered if we are using those diesel vehicles, or burning whatever garbage, and creating more pollution. But once that awareness started, all of us now sort of think twice before doing anything, that am I adding to the carbon footprint? So similarly, by this sort of awareness, you may actually, you can sort of tell your parents, you can tell your friends, siblings, whatever, little things that, how you can contribute to conserving antibiotic. And, just like it's a very sort of, you might not believe it, but antibiotics are probably the only, class of drugs which if your neighbor takes, it affects you. Why? Because the antibiotic which you take gets excreted in form of urine, stool, wherever. Then it comes in contact with so many bacteria everywhere. There are bacteria in the gut that we have. The bacteria is everywhere in the soil, water, wherever. So, and I told you, more the exposure of antibiotic to the bug, the more chances the bug would develop resistance. So there's so much of collateral damage when you take antibiotic. So all of us have to sort of think twice before popping in that antibiotic pill. So yeah, So, there are certain sort of things that, you can probably like take a pledge with me today as to, how you can be sort of more careful about antibiotics. So, one of them, which is projecting right now on my screen is cold or flu, take care, not antibiotics. That is one of the sort of most important way in which we can conserve our antibiotics. Are you all aware that most of the time the cold that we get is because of virus? So they're just viral infections. And like I told you earlier, your antibiotics are not going to work in this case. You will just be exposing, you know, uh, other bacteria to that antibiotic which you take, and then the resistance would develop. So why take antibiotic? Listen to your doctor. Don't force them to prescribe you antibiotics if you just have a cold. Wait for 1 or 2 days if your symptoms are improving, and if your doctor says that just hot water gargles or steam is good enough, you don't need antibiotics. So trust them on that. Okay. And also another thing that which I'd like to share, especially with the kids. I don't know how many of you are aware that antibiotics are very majorly used in animal feed. You would wonder why. Antibiotics are used as growth supplements in animal feed. So all the chicken burger that you eat at McDonald's or at KFC, it'll be a good idea for you to know whether they came from from farms which are drug free. You have a right to ask them. And it's very, very commonly used by farmers, and those who raise cattle and chicken farms and all, to mix antibiotics in the animal feed. Then again, this way we are sort of exposing so many bacteria to the antibiotic. There are bacteria within the animal gut, there are bacteria in the soil, water, everywhere. So whatever antibiotic the animal is taking, it's ultimately getting excreted out of the body, and it's sort of uh, uh, you know has that effect of maybe giving rise to resistance in so many bacteria. So why not be aware as to what kind of food you are eating. And okay, so couple of more things which I would like you to be careful about, and how you can sort of contribute is that whenever a doctor prescribes you antibiotic, they tell you a particular dose and the duration, right? But I mean, a lot of people, including my mother, how what they would do. Oh, this doctor has told me to take 500 milligram 3 times a day. Let me just take it twice a day. you know or if he has asked me to take it for 5 days, I think I will take it for 10 days just to sort of make sure everything is okay. So please do not do that. So don't sort of decide on your own how much dose or for how many days you need to take. These things have been worked out very, very scientifically as to how much of antibiotic you need to take for a particular infection and for how many days you need to take it. So do not self medicate, or whatever leftover antibiotic, do not store them in cabinet that next time when someone in the family has similar infection, I will just give them this antibiotic. That's not your job. Let doctors do their job. So don't unnecessarily sort of use antibiotic. And antibiotics are a non-renewable resource, so let's just sort of conserve them. And I'll be happy to take any questions if there are any. I hope I've been sort of clear enough for students to understand. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am, for your time. And it was really indeed a very informative session on your part. And we are really grateful to you for giving us your precious time. And I hope all our viewers and listeners are really enlightened to know so many new things which were otherwise unknown to us about antibiotics. Like as I have mentioned earlier, and you have also said that antibiotics are, I suppose, the most common over the top, over the counter medicines that we keep on taking. So it was really very nice on your part, ma'am, to give us your time, and thank you very much. On behalf of the DPS Indiranagar family, I extend my, I don't know what should I say, my gratitude to you, ma'am.
Pleasure,
Thank you very much.
pleasure, pleasure. Thank you, pleasure. Okay.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay.